There's a strange kind of peace that only shows up when you stop trying to force things. It doesn't come from giving up. It comes from finally realizing that holding on too tightly is exactly what's pushing everything away. The more we grip, the more we obsess, chase, overthink, and try to control, the more life resists. And it's not because life is punishing us. It's because life has a rhythm of its own. And when you try to overpower that rhythm, you break the flow that was already working in your favor. You've probably felt it. That moment when you stop texting first, when you stop obsessing over an outcome, when you stop needing a certain person to validate you or a goal to prove your worth. And suddenly things begin to fall into place. Opportunities show up. People return. Your energy changes. And it's not magic. It's alignment. You became still, and everything else started to move. But we live in a world that tells us the opposite. Never stop trying. Work harder. Hustle. Grind. Fix it. Make it happen. That mindset can be useful, but only when it's balanced with surrender. Because sometimes the next breakthrough doesn't come from trying more. It comes from letting go of the fear that if we stop trying, everything will fall apart. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you take a step back so things can breathe. And once you do that, you notice something subtle but powerful. Life starts to meet you halfway. The pressure in your chest loosens. Your decisions feel clearer. Even your presence becomes more attractive to others. Because you're not radiating neediness or resistance anymore. When you're trying to control everything, you're not in the present. You're in survival mode. You're trying to protect yourself from pain, from rejection, from loss. But here's the paradox. When you stop needing so badly for everything to go a certain way, things start going better than expected. Not because you gave up, but because you finally stepped out of your own way. Letting go is not the end. It's the invitation for life to begin again, but this time without resistance. When we hear the words "let go," the mind automatically assumes we're losing something, that we're giving up control, that we're surrendering to chaos. But what if that's the misunderstanding that's been keeping you stuck all along? Letting go isn't about loss. It's about removing friction. Think about how many of your struggles aren't just from what's happening, but from the way you're gripping on to how you think things should happen. You expect a relationship to move faster. You expect people to treat you a certain way. You expect a goal to deliver your happiness. But all those expectations become chains. They create silent pressure on yourself, on others, on the outcome. And that pressure repels what you're actually trying to receive. This is why letting go is powerful. Not because it magically fixes everything, but because it removes the invisible force that was working against you. Attachment. Attachment isn't love. It's fear disguised as effort. It says, if I don't keep pushing this, it will fall apart. And ironically, it's that push that often causes the thing to collapse. You can love someone and let go. You can want something deeply and still release the obsession. The moment you detach your identity from the result, you start to move with peace instead of panic. This is the shift that changes everything. You stop asking, how can I get this? And you start asking, what would this look like if I wasn't afraid to lose it? That one question dissolves pressure. And in that space, something rare happens. You start to feel free. Your nervous system relaxes. Your interactions become lighter. The people around you feel less suffocated. Your intuition sharpens. And without realizing it, you stop chasing and start attracting. Letting go is not passive. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's a powerful internal decision to release the tension you've been carrying and to trust that what's meant for you won't require force to keep. That doesn't mean you stop showing up. You still take action. You still make effort. But it's no longer tangled in desperation or fear. You act from clarity instead of chaos, and that clarity changes everything. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think letting go means they're no longer allowed to care, that to let go is to become numb, passive, or indifferent. But that's not it at all. In fact, true letting go requires a kind of inner strength that most people never access, because what you're really doing is releasing control without abandoning intention. You still want the relationship. You still want to heal. You still want the vision to become reality. But you no longer need it to fill a hole inside of you. And that's the part that changes the entire dynamic. Because when you cling to something, what you're really doing, unconsciously, is telling yourself that you don't already have enough, that you're not okay unless you get it, that your worth, peace, and joy are on hold until something outside of you delivers it. And here's what's wild. The universe tends to mirror that exact energy back to you. You chase love, and it runs. You grip your future, and it resists. You obsess over healing, and it slips away. Not because you're unworthy, but because your attachment to the result is blocking the process. You're planting seeds while simultaneously stepping on them. Letting go interrupts that loop. It removes the noise and creates internal space. And it's in that space that things begin to align. Not because of blind luck, but because you're no longer distorting the signal. It's like tuning a radio. If you twist the dial too aggressively, you miss the station. But when your hand is steady and your mind isn't anxious about hearing it right now, the station comes in clearly. That's how life works too. You stop chasing, and the right people feel safe to come closer. You stop micromanaging your every move, and creativity returns. You stop controlling every part of the journey, and your natural rhythm, the one that was buried under anxiety, starts to rise again. And this rhythm? It's magnetic. People feel it. Life responds to it. You feel lighter, more centered, less drained. Your energy becomes rooted. And ironically, once you're no longer trying to force things to happen, they start falling into place, not because you gave up, but because you finally got out of your own way. Now here's the part no one really talks about. Letting go doesn't always feel peaceful at first. In fact, sometimes it feels like grief. You're releasing the illusion of control. You're stepping away from people, outcomes, and ideas that you once believed were essential to your happiness. There's fear in that. Fear that maybe you're giving up too soon. Fear that without your effort, everything will fall apart. Fear that by loosening your grip, you're telling the world you don't care. But the truth is, that fear is just the mind adjusting to silence. Because when you let go of noise, what you're left with is yourself. And for many people, that's the part they've been avoiding all along. This is where the real alignment begins, not in the outer world, but in your internal dialogue. You start to realize how many of your actions weren't rooted in inspiration or truth, but in fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough. Letting go allows all those hidden beliefs to surface and gives you the chance to rewire them. Because now, without all the external distractions, you can actually hear yourself. You can feel the difference between chasing what your ego wants and moving toward what your soul needs. And it's in this clarity that your life begins to shift in ways you didn't expect. Suddenly, the people who once drained you don't feel magnetic anymore. Suddenly, the goals you were forcing no longer define your worth. Suddenly, rest doesn't feel like laziness. It feels like alignment. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You just need to be yourself, fully, honestly, and without apology. You stop doing things to be seen. You start doing them because they're real. You stop hustling for love. You start creating space for love to arrive on its own terms. Letting go doesn't make your life smaller. It makes it more true. And in that truth, there's space for everything to align. Not all at once, but piece by piece, quietly and without pressure. This isn't the path of weakness. It's the path of real confidence. Because anyone can cling, anyone can chase, but it takes real strength to release and still trust in what's yours. There's another layer to all this that slips under the radar. What happens when you let go and nothing changes right away? No miracles, no sudden breakthroughs, just silence. This is where most people panic. They say, I stopped chasing, I released, I trusted, but nothing's happening. That's because letting go isn't a transaction. It's not a do this, get that formula. It's a rewiring of your relationship with life. And rewiring takes time. What you're doing, whether you see it or not, is shifting the foundation of your inner world. You're trading force for flow, desperation for faith, noise for clarity, and that's not something you always feel on the surface. That's something you become over time. Most people aren't willing to sit in that stillness. They want quick validation that they did the right thing. But real alignment doesn't beg to be noticed. It unfolds in whispers. You start noticing little things. You're less reactive. You walk slower. You hear yourself breathe. You're not refreshing your messages anymore to feel wanted. You're not performing for people who never actually saw you. Instead of trying to prove something, you're starting to live from something steady, something sacred. And slowly, life begins to respond. Not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it's a new person who sees you without the mask. Sometimes it's an opportunity you didn't force, just walked into with ease. Sometimes it's just the realization that your peace hasn't been broken in days, and you didn't even notice how much noise you'd finally turned off. Letting go then becomes less about the result and more about the return. The return to your intuition, to your natural rhythm, to your unshakable self-respect. You're no longer outsourcing your stability to things outside your control. You've stopped bargaining with the universe and started trusting it. And even when the changes aren't loud, even when it seems like nothing is happening, everything is shifting behind the scenes. Because you are shifting. And once you shift, the world has no choice but to meet you differently. Here's the twist most people don't expect. Letting go doesn't always change the world around you. It changes the way you see it. You start to realize not everything that's falling apart is a tragedy. Some things are falling into place. They just look chaotic at first. You begin to see your past differently. The moments that used to trigger shame or regret now start to feel like chapters that grew you. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but powerfully. Because once you release the need to rewrite the past, you gain full power over how you carry it. And when you stop living in resistance, your entire nervous system starts to recalibrate. You respond instead of react. You observe instead of absorb. You hold your space without needing to defend it. You start saying things like, "I don't need to be understood to be okay. I don't need to chase what's not choosing me. I don't need to force a path that no longer feels aligned." Because here's the truth. Letting go isn't just about people or outcomes. It's also about outdated versions of you. The you that needed validation. The you that tied your worth to achievement. The you that overextended to feel needed. The you that stayed quiet to be liked. And when you start letting go of that version of yourself, the world mirrors back something new. You're no longer attracted to the same chaos. You don't engage in the same emotional games. You're no longer begging for love, opportunities, or clarity, because you're embodying all three. That's when things begin to align. Not because everything outside you changed, but because you stopped interrupting your own alignment with overthinking, overgiving, and overcontrolling. And suddenly, the things that are meant for you feel natural. Conversations flow. Connections deepen. Ideas feel inspired. You're not walking into rooms trying to be enough. You're walking in already knowing that you are. There's one final piece people miss about letting go, and it might be the most important. It's not just about detaching from others. It's about detaching from the timeline you thought life was supposed to follow. That imaginary schedule in your head, the one that told you where you should be by now, who you should be with, how your story should look. It's not truth. It's programming. And as long as you measure your progress against that imaginary deadline, you'll always feel behind. But the moment you let go of that invisible pressure, something radical happens. You start living in real time. You begin meeting life where it is, instead of where you think it should be. And that's where actual alignment begins. Not in your plans, but in your presence. You stop needing signs every 5 minutes that things are working. You stop asking the world to reassure you. You become your own reassurance. And from that place, you start to notice the magic in small moments again. A conversation that feels effortless. A sudden idea that just lands perfectly. A moment of stillness where your chest isn't tight anymore. You realize that alignment isn't a destination. It's a byproduct of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your path, trust in life's timing even when it's slower than you hope. And here's what's wild. The less you chase outcomes, the more you enjoy the becoming. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're not resisting it anymore. So here's your challenge. Let go. Not to lose, but to align. Let go. Not to run, but to return to yourself. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to feel your peace. Because when you're grounded in that, everything changes. If something in this hit you, don't just click off. Drop a comment, even one sentence. Let someone scrolling know they're not alone. Your story might be the reflection someone else needs to feel seen. And if you're done with noise and finally ready to live with clarity and alignment, subscribe. This is just the beginning.